In this first clip, Mitch breaks down what stress really is and why it might be exactly what your athletes need. He explains the science behind the stress response and how coaches can reframe it as a performance
Cannot lower
advantage.
the level of stress. Now I'm feeling like I'm failing because they're not
something's wrong
stressed.
with you.
Obviously, they're not stressed. I am. Boy, their careers, they don't get stressed. What you need to do is change your outlook. This is the key part of it. And the research is, what's great about the research is, without going into detail, it shows you that this is something you can change people's mindsets quickly on. So what we need to do is, well, reality, what is stress anyway? Or what is being nervous or uncomfortable, whatever words you want to use? That's your body. If you're looking at it, instead of saying, holy smokes, I can't perform, and instead say, that's my body helping me prepare. Because what is the physical response to stress? Which, by the way, it's the same physical response to being excited. So first of all, when are we stressed? Big time job interview, trying to perform in athletics, asking a girl out for the first time. It's all the same feeling.
So,
okay.
Yeah, when things matter to us.
Yeah, that's right. And so what happens is, when this happens, what does your body do? You tend to, breathe a little faster. All right, your heart certainly pumps more. Well, if you're looking at it the right way, what happens when you breathe a little more? You get more oxygen in your blood. What happens when your heart pumps harder? Gets more blood to your extremities and your brain. It's preparing me for the challenge. What I need to look at, this is preparing me. Now, if I see stress as bad and I'm going to freeze up, your blood vessels actually constrict when that happens. Which now what happens? I can't get as much blood to my extremities, and that's when I get lightheaded. That's when I feel weak. That's when I feel tired because of it. It's not the stress. It's how we react to it. So now it's about, all right, now all I got to do is help kids. I got to help them with tools. First of all, explain to them it's not a bad thing. It's helping you get prepared. So take some deep breaths and slow down. Right? Use this to help focus not on winning, but on the skills that you've already learned that's going to help you get there. Which is, how often do you see people set personal records, set world records in practice? Not very often. Why? Because they're not stressed enough. Let's look at that. I'm not stressed enough. It's not important enough. They set it when they are absolutely under the stress, and they've used it well. It got them to focus, and they've got more blood in your muscles in the brain, and with that, adrenaline kicks in. So if we do it the opposite, then all of those things, the stress, then it's the cortisol and all this stuff that is anti-performance. Our job is to help young people and help us as well say, all right, I'm looking forward to being stressed. Right? And
in this next segment with Mitch, he shares a powerful formula that changes how we understand pressure. He makes the case that being nervous before a big moment isn't a weakness, it's evidence that you care. And that's where great coaching can begin.
And I looked at it and I go, the formula is wrong because it's very simple. She goes, stress is basically caring plus uncertainty equals discomfort, stress, or nervousness. All of those are basically the same thing. And I go, I know math. That's the wrong formula because it's caring times uncertainty. Because caring plus means if you don't care, which that makes it 0, but the result's really uncertain, there's still a lot of stress because you add them together. When it's caring times and one of them 0, then all these math people out there listening to us, what's 0 times any number? 0. So that we look at this and we go, then I'm going to explain my athletes, this is the championship game here, right? The results uncertain. This is why the champion is two great teams. It's a championship game. The results uncertain. So if you're not nervous, there's only one thing left. You don't care. Your caring is at zero. Why in the world would I play somebody who's not nervous for the championship game? Because the only way it could be that way is that you don't care. What I'm doing now is giving them permission. Now I'm going to teach them how to use it. Because the flip side, all right, if I really care about the result, so that's the big number. But let's say I got to pass this math test to get into law school. And the math test is only single digit numbers added together. So the most can be is 9 plus 9, right? I really care about getting in, but that result is so certain. I know all my single digit additions. I'm not nervous. Right? So it works both ways. And now what we have done is we're giving kids the permission to have stress and making it a good thing. And the research is clear on this. When you do that and you can help people change quickly, you change how they look at it too. And it will help performance, whether it's your GREs, which are pretty dang important. So you're going in and say, hey, do you feel stressed? Well, you should be. It's important. Just use that to focus. Okay, now do you know what I took away? The stress about being stressed. I didn't take the stress away. I can't do that. Right? It's not about taking it away. It's about giving them tools to be able to do stress well.
Mm-hmm. This month had a fascinating conversation with David Shapiro, the CEO of Boston YMCA. In this next clip, he unpicks what it means to earn trust before it's tested. He shares why coaches need to be consistent human beings and not just consistent winners, and used one of the lines that I think is my favorite in all the time of doing this podcast of how quiet moments of care become the foundation for trust.
A player will feel you have their best interest at heart. Because if you only come to them in the moments of failure, they're going to think you're after changing the results. But if you tell them like, look, I remember who you are and who you were and what kind of results you got at other times. And this is a moment where I still believe in you. I'm going to give you a day off today. That's BS. You just want to see if that guy's going to get better results. Well, if I know you really care about me, I actually might trust that you really do think me getting a mental break is you care about me. Like that's really, you say what you mean. Like, but I just think like they've got to believe that you're invested in them so that the hard work is done when the times are dark. But we're also the least trusting when the times are dark. So you better build a relationship when the times are good that holds people accountable, that doesn't dismiss all behaviors because of winning, that sort of does show you to be a consistent human with interest in humans. Like, reveal yourself in the good times so that in the dark times you can do hard work.
One of the quotes I had from your talk, establish trust in the quiet moments to create a foundation.
Yes. So, we are drawn to dramatic moments and nothing happens in dramatic moments.
It's so interesting because I started to say this often, but I said it yesterday to somebody. Like, I feel conflicted a lot in my job because we want to win. That's important. I think putting our best foot forward matters. But the most transformational moments I see are when things go to crap and kids need to deal with the role they don't have. Or that's where the coach's role really matters, and where growth happens, or 3 of the starters get hurt and all of a sudden we stink, and you can have some really successful seasons, but they're not high in the win column. And, I don't know if I had a question at the end of that, but it lines up with what you're saying. Yeah.
No, it's a great point. And, I think like when you think about establishing culture, when you think about building a program, and obviously this is what's become more difficult in modern college sports and even modern high school sports with all the shifting around of players. But there's a lot of people who tell stories about go back to the Spurs, who were a dynasty. The Spurs weren't built when they first won an NBA championship. They were built when, I don't know when, because I wasn't a part of that story, but they were probably built when they first started thinking about the international draft. They were probably built when they drafted David Robinson, who was older and coming out of a military academy. And some people passed him by because they were he's going to have less years of playing. But they were leadership skills, great human, ability to build around culturally. Who cares if we have him 3 less great years as a player? I mean, I don't know what the decisions were, but it might be when guys bought in because they saw the coach care about a guy who just blew out his elbow just as much as he cares about a number 1 guy. And they were like, holy crap. And they started telling recruits, you should have seen this guy. He spent days with a dude who just blew out his arm instead of our ace because he just actually cares about us. So they are, I mean, I think if you think about building a team over 4 years instead of 1 year, then winning does happen in quiet and dark moments. And you won the NCAA championship in 94, but the inflection point might have been in 90.
That's
You know?
Also in May, I appeared on the podcast Playing with a Purpose with my friend Matt Barker from Freed-Hardeman University. In the episode, we dig into the heart of team culture. I share thoughts on how real unity isn't sameness. It's built upon shared commitments. I hope you enjoy this segment. Time as VP of Student Life. So in that role, you're really charged with trying to create community for the whole campus outside the classroom. And when I was at Heston, I'm probably screwing up this number, but I want to say about 30% of our students were international students, and a big chunk of those came from Japan. Okay. And people would get really critical, not of the Japanese students, the other students, because the Japanese students would sit together at lunch. And they're like, how do we fix that? And my initial response is, I don't think that needs to be fixed. If I came to a foreign country, I would love eating lunch with somebody that spoke my language.
Right.
So I tell that story in any group, there is going to be cliques. It's how do we build understanding between them, build relationships between them so it doesn't become toxic. And naturally, when people are spending time apart, I think and especially in a group of competitive people, I think that could be a challenge. So the things I see that have worked is, number 1, you name it. And I think you can start that from the outset. And especially when you see those things developing, and it's especially in a negative way, I think you have the conversation. I see it no differently than when we get complaints in athletic director chairs about coaches. I don't know how many complaints I've gotten where coach was screaming at this kid and not actually true. There's always some middle ground.
Yeah.
And my approach with coaches is, hey, I'm not saying this is even right, but here's what was brought to me. What do you think? And I think it's the same approach. And I don't even bring every complaint to coaches. There's some feel there, but I think same thing with the clicks piece is talking to a few kids from them, just saying, hey guys, here's what I see. I'm not telling you not to hang out with who you like, but this is going to impact our performance because if it's going on, how do we work together on it?
Yeah.
And the more it's we together, all those kind of things, I think it matters. And I think the other easy part is you're in control of who goes where in practice or at dinner or at the buses and all those kind of things. And the more you mix them up and the more kids can share their story with one another and get to know each other, the harder it is to dislike somebody else.
Absolutely. And this question might go back to some of the experiences you've had with your podcast, talking to a lot of different coaches on the way they maybe have handled some of these situations. But how can they tailor their coaching style to fit different individuals on the team? We talked about how every team's going to have people from different backgrounds, cultural things going on as well, that makes them unique in their own way. But it also makes it sometimes a challenge to reach every student athlete in the same way. So maybe the next couple questions might kind of go together here, but how do you tailor a coaching style to fit different individuals? And maybe that involves a little bit sometimes difficult personalities, because with this differences in who people are, there's going to come different personalities as well, different ways that they express themselves that might not be in line with how the cultural values of that team. And how do you kind of manage that as far as letting them be their own individual, but also having that team unity in the same process?
Yeah. Great question. I think that's a hard one. I think at the college level, it's a little more clear to me. because you do the recruiting of your team. You will always have difficult people, but you can create clarity of expectation on the front end of this is who we are. And I think that does help self-select out some people if you do it well. But I think a mistake college coaches make is when they have a tough, difficult year, either on the court or just team culture-wise, they think they can fix it by recruiting. And they can't. There's always going to be difficult people. So I think when you work with them, I think it comes back to, I don't want to sound repetitive, but creating clarity of expectation and having In this next clip, Matt and I talk about the intersection of care and accountability. I share why great coaches create space for both grace and growth, and how our impactful leadership principles help develop these things.
In seeing the strategies that they use. And there's actually, I really enjoy these short podcasts. I think they're 6 minutes. And one of the ones that I came across that was very interesting was sticky program culture. This is one that I'm not sure who came up with this topic, but it really talking about the transfer portal and how you kind of have this sticky program culture where people want to come. You also kind of have to look at sometimes, why are they in the transfer portal? Do we want, we need to make sure they're a good fit for us as well. But a lot of this goes back to building this unity with people that might not, automatically go together. You have to kind of see what fits, buy into this team culture to get that unity. So what does team unity mean to you?
I think the term, so we're big believers in 3D Institute and the work they do, and their term for it's team cohesion, which is the same thing I think we're getting at here. And really, when we talk about sticky, it was a word Dustin and I started using. We have a unbelievable football coach here. Retention's been strong. They have that great team cohesion. And our coach said something to me the first year he was here, where when kids are thinking about transferring and all that kind of stuff, I think coaches go down a rabbit hole where they talk kids into staying, and that just doesn't work.
Right.
And his response was, "This place is awesome. Why would you leave?"
Mhm.
And that was his token response. They don't ask you if you're staying. It's why would you even ever think about leaving?
Yeah.
And I think that tone really gets you thinking unity, where how great is this place and how do we do it? But when you break it down, a coach is a community builder. We're building communities of teams. Athletic directors are building communities of coaches and athletic departments. And I think you start on a foundation of behavior that's allowed or not allowed. And a mentor of mine once said, all communities are exclusive, which that raises eyebrows from people when you say it, because we want to be welcoming. Absolutely. But there's certain rules you have to follow, certain behaviors you have to stay in any community. I don't care if it's a family, it's a team, it's a job, whatever it may be. And making sure those expectations are in place of how we treat each other and how we act together, I think is the foundation of team unity, because we have a shared understanding of how we're going to operate. And I think a lot of coaches get themselves in trouble where they make a lot of assumptions on what those behaviors are and that people understand them. So I think that's one piece. And then I think it's the other piece. We talk about this where we talk about 3 C's of coaching. I'm not really a tagline guy, but Dustin talked me into it. But of the 3 C's for impactful coaching, we say you have to be competent, know what you're talking about. You have to be caring. And then you have to be constant, meaning constant character, your constant presence. And the caring piece is what I find is the other piece of team cohesion. And what that means is you have an environment where kids feel cared for, and not in a soft way. Let's pat everybody on the back, which I'm a believer in patting on the back, but it's more you have systems in place where kids feel seen, known, and recognized. So on a smaller roster, one thing I believe in is have each kid share their story to the team. Take 3 minutes, and share who you are. It's hard to dislike somebody once you know their story more, and on larger teams, that can be a challenge. This next clip comes from the conversation with Dr. Wendy Moehler Seib and Kelli Seiwert. In the clip, Wendy explains how belonging impacts spiritual development and team culture, and shares what the research revealed about team belonging, and especially how avoiding conflict can quietly erode a team from the inside.
Like, we know that young adult development, like, this is a time in their lives where belonging is of high importance. If we think Erik Erikson still has any value, the question the young adult asks is, to whom or what will I pledge my fidelity? And so I think college athletics and high school athletics, even, I would say, and really middle school athletics, these are places where belonging is so important. And over and over, we found that if the student didn't feel like they belonged on the team, there was a negative association. But if they felt they they belonged on the team. There was a positive association to their own faith formation based on a sense of belonging. So figuring out, how do you create a culture of belonging for the student who may never actually see any playing time, or who will see some playing time, but it will be minimal, but their role on the team is vital in terms of encouragement and culture and practice and all of those elements that the student who's not the standout, the student athlete who's not the standout, still brings value to the team, and making sure that there's a place of deep belonging. The other piece I would add, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, let me
Do you
ask
have
a
a
question
thought?
on that. Yeah, so the
Yeah.
belonging piece, totally agree. Did anything jump out at you of what coaches were doing or not doing that either encouraged or, I don't think discouraged belonging is probably the right word, but the other end of that spectrum?
I think when coaches wouldn't step in and kind of get in where it was messy, where there's some drama going on, and kind of shut the drama down, and if a coach was conflict avoidant when it became time for relational, if you're conflict avoidant related to interpersonal relationships of a group of student athletes, the absence of conflict creates conflict.
Yes.
So to avoid the conflict actually will create more conflict, because your team is going to try to figure that out with or without you. The conflict won't go away if you don't insert yourself. So I think where
Well said.
the coach was willing to take it head on and say, listen, we have a conflict as a team, and these are some things that aren't tolerated here. And just those clear boundaries of this is what it looks like to create a space where everyone belongs and is of value and worth.
Cool. Sorry, go on now.
Okay. I think the other thing I would say for the coach is transferable skills. So this actually, I did a study with a professor down at Southwestern on leadership formation and how leaders are formed. And I think we all know experientially that, like, just because you're a great player, it doesn't make you a great coach. Just because you're a great teacher, it doesn't make you a great principal. Just because, we could go on and on with
right on.
those kinds of analogies, right? So the key is the coach teaching transferable skills and explicitly stating how those skills transfer on and off the field. We repeatedly heard this from the football players we interviewed. They just were very clear that what they were doing on the football field was important in how they were going to live their lives one day. So I'm going to be good to my team, and by being good to my team and being among the brotherhood and honoring the brothers on the football team, I'm learning how to be a good community member. I'm learning how to be a good father in my home. I'm learning how to lead well in work. So I think that goes with faith too. It's the beauty of, I think, what FCA has to offer is a space where the translation is happening, really beautifully, which I think is really where my encouragement would be for the student athlete is to go to those places like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where you have space to explicitly talk about how your faith is shaped by your athletics and how your athletics are shaped by your faith. And then they don't have to see them, so separate.
Was there any... Thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond Coaching. Beyond Coaching is a podcast developed and produced by the Impactful Coaching Project with the support of Friends University. The Impactful Coaching Project seeks to develop coaches that coach the whole person and is the thought leader in coaching the 21st century athlete. The Impactful Coaching Project produces training, information, and research to help coaches improve. To see more information, go to impactfulcoachingproject.substack.com. Thank you.